Commander Zixthal stood on the bridge of the Harmonious Dawn and watched another world die. The planet below was called Varith Prime. 2 billion souls lived there yesterday. Today flames covered half the surface. The Crethon Empire ships looked like dark knives against the burning sky. They moved in perfect formation. Their weapons turned cities into ash in seconds. The Velari coalition had 14 species. They worked together for 300 years. But against the Crethon, they were losing badly. "How many ships do we have left?" Zixthal asked. His voice was tired. They had been fighting for 2 years now. 43 warships in this sector, Commander," his tactical officer replied. "The Crethon have over 243 ships. The coalition once had thousands." Zixthal remembered when they thought war was impossible. All 14 species believed in peace. They built their military for defense only. Their doctrine was simple: protect civilians, minimize casualties, fight with honor. The Crethon had no such rules. They came from the outer edge of the galaxy. Nobody knew much about them before the invasion. The Crethon believed only the strong deserved to survive. They destroyed entire planets just to make a point. Their technology was better. Their ships were faster. Their weapons hit harder, but worse than their weapons was their mindset. They did not care about honor. They attacked civilian targets. They used tricks and traps. They hit supply lines instead of fighting face to face. The coalition called it cowardice. The Crethon called it victory. "Commander, we're receiving an emergency transmission from the evacuation fleet," the communications officer called out. Zixthal moved quickly to the console. The screen showed civilian transport ships trying to escape Varith Prime. Behind them, Crethon destroyers were closing in. "All units, move to intercept," Zixthal ordered. "We must protect those civilians." The Harmonious Dawn and 6 other coalition ships changed course. They positioned themselves between the civilian ships and the Crethon fleet. It was the right thing to do. It was what their doctrine demanded. It was also exactly what the Crethon expected. The enemy ships opened fire. Coalition shields lit up under the assault. Zixthal gripped his command chair as the ship shook. "Return fire. Defensive pattern 7. Blue energy beams shot from the coalition ships. A few hit their targets. But the Crethon shields were strong. Meanwhile, the Crethon weapons tore through coalition defenses like paper. One coalition cruiser exploded, then another. The civilian ships kept moving toward safety, but Zixthal knew they would not all make it. They never did anymore. "Sir, we have a new contact on sensors," the tactical officer said. "Unknown signature. Not Crethon. Not coalition." Zixthal looked at the display. A single ship was approaching. It was smaller than a Crethon battleship, but larger than a coalition frigate. The design was strange, angular, aggressive. "Can you identify it?" "Negative, Commander. The computer has no match in our database." "Wait, we're receiving a signal. Audio only." A voice came through the speakers. It sounded strange but spoke in perfect coalition standard language. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the human exploration ship Indomitable. We've received your distress calls. We see you're in trouble. We're coming to help." Zixthal had heard stories about humans. Ancient legends said they existed somewhere far away, a species that fought each other for thousands of years. Most scholars thought humans were just myths. "Captain Chen, this is Commander Zixthal. We appreciate your offer, but you should leave this area immediately. The Crethon Empire is extremely dangerous. Your single ship cannot help here." There was a pause. Then the human spoke again. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. "Commander, with respect, I disagree. Indomitable, going weapons hot. All hands, battle stations." On the display, the human ship accelerated. It did not move toward the coalition defensive line. It did not position itself to protect the civilians. Instead, it went straight at the Crethon fleet. "What is she doing?" Zixthal whispered. "That's suicide." The Crethon fleet saw the human ship coming. 5 destroyers broke formation and moved to intercept. They probably thought it would be easy. 1 small ship against 5 warships. It should have been over in seconds. The human ship did something unexpected. It rolled sideways while still moving forward. Its weapons fired. But these were not energy beams like the coalition used. These were solid projectiles moving at impossible speeds. The first Crethon destroyer's shields flickered and died. The metal slugs punched through the hull like it was nothing. The ship broke apart in a silent explosion. The human ship kept moving. It launched missiles. Dozens of them. They twisted and turned in space, avoiding Crethon defensive fire. Several reached their targets. Nuclear fire bloomed in the darkness. By the stars, Zixthal's tactical officer breathed. Are those atomic weapons? The Coalition banned nuclear weapons 2 centuries ago. They were considered too brutal, too final. But the human ship used them without hesitation. In less than 5 minutes, 4 Crethon destroyers were destroyed. The 5th tried to retreat. The human ship pursued it. More railgun rounds, more missiles. The destroyer never had a chance. The remaining Crethon ships stopped their attack on the civilian fleet. They regrouped and turned to face this new threat. The human ship hung in space waiting. Captain Chen's voice came over the channel again. Commander Zixthal, I suggest you get those civilians to safety now. We'll keep these hostiles busy. Zixthal stared at the tactical display. He had watched the Coalition lose battle after battle for 2 years. He had seen thousands of ships destroyed, and now one human warship had done what entire fleets could not. It had made the Crethon afraid. All ships cover the evacuation fleet, he ordered quietly. His crew moved to obey, but everyone kept watching the human ship. The Crethon launched another attack, this time with 12 ships. They came at the human vessel from 3 directions. It was a standard pincer movement. Textbook tactics, the human ship did not try to defend. It attacked. It dove into the middle of the Crethon formation and started tearing ships apart at close range. The battle was fast and violent. It was nothing like the careful, measured combat the Coalition practiced. This was something primal, something deadly. This was war the way humans understood it. When it was over, 7 more Crethon ships were destroyed or crippled. The rest retreated. The human ship was damaged but still operational. It slowly turned and moved back toward the Coalition fleet. Captain Chen, Zixthal said, thank you. You saved thousands of lives today. We are in your debt. No thanks necessary, Commander. When you see someone in trouble, you help. That's what decent beings do, she paused. I think we need to talk. I'd like to come aboard your ship if that's acceptable. Of course, we would be honored. As preparations began for the meeting, Zixthal looked out at the stars. For the first time in months, he felt something he thought was lost forever. Hope. But he also felt something else, something uncomfortable. He had watched the human ship fight. He had seen its brutal efficiency, its complete lack of restraint, its willingness to do whatever was necessary to win. The Coalition spent centuries building a civilization based on peace and honor. The Crethon threatened to destroy all of that, but now humans had arrived. And Zixthal wondered if accepting their help might change his people forever. Sometimes he thought the cure might be as dangerous as the disease. But desperate times required desperate measures. And the Coalition was very, very desperate. Captain Sarah Chen stepped off the shuttle and into the harmonious dawn. Everything looked clean and elegant. The walls were curved and smooth. Soft blue lights lined the corridors. Even the air smelled pleasant, like flowers from some alien world. It was nothing like her ship. Commander Zixthal waited at the airlock. He was tall and thin, with silver skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. His large eyes studied her carefully. Chen could see curiosity there, and also fear. Captain Chen, welcome aboard. I am Commander Zixthal. On behalf of the Velari Coalition, I thank you for your assistance today. Chen nodded. Just doing what's right, Commander. Nobody should have to face extinction alone. They walked through the ship toward the conference room. Other Coalition crew members stopped to stare at Chen as she passed. She was used to it. Humans look different from most species. Shorter, more compact, more muscular, built for a heavier gravity. Your ship is impressive, Zixthal said, making conversation. We have never seen weapons like yours. How do they work? Railguns, Chen explained. Magnetic acceleration. We fire solid slugs at a significant fraction of light speed. Simple physics. Kinetic energy equals mass times velocity squared. Hit something hard enough and fast enough, and shields don't matter much. And the explosive weapons? Those were nuclear, were they not? Chen glanced at him. Yes, fusion warheads mostly. Some fission. They're effective against group targets. Zixthal was quiet for a moment. The Coalition banned such weapons long ago. They caused too much suffering. Suffering is what happens when you lose a war, Chen said quietly. I prefer to win. They reached the conference room. Inside, several other Coalition officers waited. They represented different species. All of them looked at Chen with the same mixture of gratitude and unease. Please sit. Zixthal gestured to a chair. We have many questions if you do not mind. Ask away. A female officer with feathers instead of hair spoke first. Captain Chen, how did you know to come here? We did not send any signals beyond Coalition space. We picked up your distress calls 3 weeks ago, Chen said. The Indomitable is an exploration vessel. We were mapping the outer regions when we detected the signals. It took us some time to translate them and plot a course here. 3 weeks, Zixthal repeated. You traveled for 3 weeks to help strangers? Chen shrugged. Seemed like the decent thing to do. We heard people calling for help. So we came. But you came alone, another officer said. Where is your fleet? Back home, about 80 light years from here. We're the only human ship in this region of space. The Coalition officers exchanged glances. Zixthal leaned forward. Captain, I do not wish to seem ungrateful, but one ship cannot change the course of this war. The Crethon Empire has hundreds of vessels. They control dozens of systems. Your government must send help, a fleet, an army. Chen shook her head. That's not going to happen, Commander. Earth is too far away. By the time a fleet could get here, your war would be over one way or another. And honestly, Earth's government won't authorize military intervention in what they see as an alien conflict. The hope that had begun to show on the Coalition officers' faces died. Zixthal slumped in his chair. Then we are lost, he said quietly. One ship, no matter how powerful, cannot stop the Crethon. You're right, Chen agreed. One ship can't win your war. But I'm not offering you one ship. I'm offering you something more valuable. She pulled a data device from her pocket and placed it on the table. This contains Earth's complete military database. Thousands of years of warfare, strategy, tactics, weapons design, logistics, everything humanity learned from killing each other. The silence in the room was heavy. Finally, the feathered officer spoke. You fought each other? Your own species? For most of our history, yes. Wars over land, resources, religion, politics, or just because we didn't like each other. We got very, very good at it. How good? Zixthal asked. Chen's expression was grim. In the 20th century alone, we killed over 100 million of our own people in wars. We invented weapons that could destroy our entire planet. We came very close to using them. That's when we finally scared ourselves into peace. The Coalition officers looked horrified. Zixthal picked up the data device like it might explode. You want us to learn from this? To become like you? I want you to survive, Chen said firmly. Look, I watched your battle before I intervened. You fought with honor. You protected civilians. You followed rules. That's admirable. It's also why you're losing. She stood and began pacing. The Crethon don't care about honor. They hit you where it hurts. They target your weak points. They use every advantage. And you keep fighting the same way, hoping your principles will somehow beat their ruthlessness, man. So what do you suggest? Another officer asked coldly. That we abandon everything we believe in? I suggest you decide what's more important, Chen replied. Your principles or your survival. Because right now you can't have both. Zixthal stood slowly. Captain Chen, would you permit me to tour your vessel? I wish to see what a human warship looks like. Chen studied him for a moment, then nodded. All right, but I warn you it's not pretty. 2 hours later, Zixthal walked through the corridors of the Indomitable. Everything was different from Coalition ships. The walls were metal, exposed and functional. The lights were harsh and bright. The air smelled of oil and electronics. But it was the purpose of everything that disturbed him most. Chen showed him the armory. Racks of rifles, pistols, grenades, and weapons he did not recognize. For boarding actions, she explained. Sometimes you have to fight face to face. She showed him the training room. Crew members practiced hand-to-hand combat. Zixthal watched as two humans grappled, punched, and kicked each other. It looked brutal. They're hurting each other, he said. They're training, Chen corrected. If you don't train hard, you die easy. She showed him the tactical center. Holographic displays showed ship movements, weapons ranges, and attack patterns. Everything was designed for maximum efficiency in killing. This is what a warship looks like, Chen said quietly. Not a ship that can fight. A ship built specifically to destroy other ships. Every system, every weapon, every crew member focused on one goal, winning the battle. Zixthal felt sick. Your whole civilization must be violent, savage. Chen turned to face him. We were for a very long time. But then we learned something important. The better we got at war, the more terrible it became. Eventually, the fear of what we could do to each other forced us to find another way. She walked to a viewport, Stars shone in the darkness beyond. We chose peace, Commander. But we chose it from a position of strength. We didn't evolve past violence. We mastered it so thoroughly that we understood its true cost, and that understanding saved us. You want us to master violence too, Zixthal said. I want you to survive long enough to have a choice. Right now, the Krethon are making all your choices for you. They stood in silence for a while. Finally, Zixthal spoke. If we accept your help, if we learn your ways, will we become like you? Will we turn into warriors? Chen met his eyes. I don't know, maybe, but I can tell you this. If you don't change, you'll definitely become extinct. At least this way, you have a chance. Zixthal looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Krethon Empire was preparing its next attack. Somewhere out there, coalition worlds were dying. I need to discuss this with the Coalition Council, he said finally. But I believe I know what their answer will be. We are desperate, Captain Chen, and desperate people do desperate things, Chen nodded. I understand. Take the database, study it, learn from it. My crew and I will stay in this sector and help however we can. We'll hit Krethon supply lines, raid their outposts, anything to buy you time. Thank you, Captain. As Zixthal prepared to return to his ship, he turned back one last time. Captain Chen, one more question. How did humanity finally stop fighting itself? Chen smiled sadly. We didn't. We just got better at choosing when to fight. And we learned that the strongest warriors are the ones who know when not to draw their weapons. Maybe you'll learn that too, after you survive. Zixthal returned to the Harmonious Dawn carrying the human database. It felt heavy in his hands, not because of its physical weight, but because of what it represented. The end of innocence, the beginning of something darker, something necessary. The Coalition would learn to fight like humans. They would become efficient killers. They would win. But Zixthal wondered what the true cost of that victory would be. The Coalition Council meeting lasted 3 days. Representatives from all 14 species argued about the human database. Some called it salvation. Others called it corruption. In the end, survival won. The vote was 11-3. Zixthal stood in a training facility 2 weeks later. The room was packed with Coalition military officers. Screens lined the walls showing human military history. The images were disturbing. Armies marching, cities burning, weapons destroying everything in sight. Captain Chen stood at the front of the room. 3 of her officers flanked her. Lieutenant Marcus Cole handled tactics. Commander Lisa Park specialized in weapons. Dr. James Wilson understood military psychology. Good morning, Chen began. I know many of you don't want to be here. I know this goes against everything you were taught, but I'm going to teach you how to win. The Krethon have spent 2 years beating you. That ends now. She gestured to the screens. Images appeared showing Coalition battle formations. This is how you fight currently. Defensive positions. Shield walls. Minimal aggression. You wait for the enemy to attack, then you respond. It's noble. It's also stupid. Several officers shifted uncomfortably. One raised a hand. Captain, our doctrine is designed to minimize casualties on both sides. We believe all life is valuable. All life is valuable, Chen agreed. But whose life matters more to you? Your enemies or your own people's? Because every day you try to minimize Krethon casualties, they're maximizing yours. The screen changed. Now it showed human military tactics. Fast movements, aggressive strikes, coordinated attacks from multiple directions. This is how humans fight. We identify the enemy's weakness and we hit it hard. We don't give them time to recover. We don't fight fair. We fight to win. Lieutenant Cole stepped forward. Let's talk about a specific example. In human history, there was a battle called Cannae. A smaller army defeated a much larger force by using a tactic called double envelopment. They drew the enemy into the center, then closed around them from both sides. The larger army was trapped and destroyed. He pulled up tactical diagrams. The Krethon use superior numbers and firepower. They expect you to meet them head-on. So don't draw them in. Make them think they're winning. Then hit them from the sides when they're overextended. That sounds like deception, another officer said. We do not deceive our enemies. We fight openly. And how's that working out? Cole asked bluntly. Look, war isn't a gentleman's duel. It's survival. The enemy wants to kill you. Your job is to kill them first using every advantage you have. Commander Park took over next. Let's discuss targeting priorities. Currently, you focus on destroying enemy warships in direct combat. That's inefficient. Instead, target their supply ships, their fuel depots, their repair facilities. An enemy ship without fuel and ammunition is already defeated without firing a shot. She showed images of human military campaigns. Humans learned this lesson the hard way. You can't win by just destroying the enemy's army. You win by destroying their ability to make war, cut their supply lines, destroy their logistics, force them to fight on your terms, not theirs. Zixthal listened carefully. Everything the humans said made sense from a tactical perspective. But it felt wrong. The coalition built their civilization on honor and fairness. These tactics had no honor. Dr. Wilson spoke next. His specialty was psychological warfare. The Crethon believe they're superior to you. They think you're weak because you follow rules. We're going to use that against them. Make them afraid. Make them uncertain. An enemy that fears you makes mistakes. He showed data from recent battles. After Captain Chen destroyed those Crethon ships, their fleet behavior changed. They became more cautious. They stopped taking risks. Fear is a weapon. Learn to use it. The training continued for hours. The human officers taught coalition commanders about ambush tactics, false retreats, feints, and flanking maneuvers. They explained concepts like force multiplication, asymmetric warfare, and strategic depth. They showed videos of human wars, ancient battles with swords and shields, modern conflicts with tanks and aircraft, space warfare simulations. Every example demonstrated the same principles: speed, aggression, and adaptability. During a break, Zixthal approached Captain Chen. "This is difficult for us," he admitted. "You're asking us to abandon principles we've held for centuries." Chen poured herself coffee from a human machine. The smell was bitter and strong. "I understand. But let me ask you something. How many coalition civilians have died in this war?" Zixthal's expression darkened. "Billions. And how many Crethon civilians?" "We do not know. We do not target civilian populations." "Exactly. You follow your principles while your people die. The Crethon follow no principles and they're winning. I'm not saying you should become like them. I'm saying you need to become practical." She sipped her coffee. "Here's what humans learned. Rules in war only work if both sides follow them. The Crethon don't, so you have two choices. Keep following rules that don't protect you or adapt your rules to reality. And if we become ruthless like the Crethon, what stops us from becoming monsters?" "You do," Chen said firmly. "Being effective in war doesn't mean being evil. It means being smart. You can hit supply depots without killing civilians. You can use deception without being cruel. You can fight to win while still maintaining your core values." She set down her cup. "The difference between you and the Crethon isn't that they're willing to fight dirty and you're not. The difference is that you fight to protect and they fight to conquer. Don't lose that distinction. But don't let it get you killed either." The training resumed. Over the following days, coalition officers learned human tactics. They studied historical battles. They ran simulations. Slowly, reluctantly, they began to understand. One simulation particularly struck Zixthal. It showed a human defensive battle called Thermopylae. A small force held a narrow pass against a massive army. They used terrain to their advantage. They made the enemy's numbers meaningless. "Force multiplication," Lieutenant Cole explained. "You don't need more ships. You need to use the ships you have more effectively. Choose battlefields that favor your strengths and negate enemy advantages." By the end of the first week, coalition commanders began proposing their own tactics based on human principles. A Velari admiral suggested using asteroid fields to ambush Crethon supply convoys. A Thexian general proposed a false retreat to draw enemy ships into a trap. They were learning. They were changing. Meanwhile, the Indomitable continued its guerrilla campaign. Captain Chen's ship struck Crethon logistics bases. They destroyed fuel depots. They ambushed isolated patrol groups. Every attack was fast and brutal. Hit hard, then disappear. The Crethon started calling the Indomitable the Ghost Ship, or sometimes the Reaper. Crethon commanders grew nervous. Reports came in of enemy fleets refusing to enter certain sectors. Fear was working. On the 20th day of training, Zixthal stood before his own command staff. He had called them together to present a new battle plan. It incorporated everything the humans taught them. "The Crethon are planning a major offensive against the Talax system," he began. "Intelligence suggests they will commit over 100 ships. By our old tactics, we would position our fleet to defend the system directly. We would lose." He activated a tactical display. "Instead, we're going to let them into the system. We'll position most of our ships here and here, hidden behind the gas giant's moons. We'll leave only a small defensive force visible. They'll think we're weak, an officer said, understanding. They'll commit fully to the attack. Exactly. And when they're fully engaged, we hit them from both sides. Meanwhile, Captain Chen's ship will strike their staging area in the rear, cutting off their retreat and reinforcements. The staff studied the plan. It was aggressive. It was risky. It relied on deception. It was everything they had been taught not to do. It was perfect. When do we begin? Someone asked. Sixthal looked at his officers. He saw determination in their eyes. They were ready. We begin now. Send orders to all coalition fleets. Tell them the era of defensive warfare is over. We're taking the fight to the Crethon. As his staff moved to carry out orders, Zixthal contacted Captain Chen. Captain, we're ready to test what you've taught us. The Battle of Talax will be our first real application of human tactics. Chen's voice came through clearly. Good. Remember, the goal isn't to fight fair. The goal is to survive. Make them regret ever attacking you. We will. Captain Chen, regardless of what happens, thank you. You've given us something we lost. You've given us hope. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when you win. Chen out. Zixthal looked out at the stars. The Crethon thought they knew the coalition. They expected the same defensive tactics, the same honorable warfare, the same predictable responses. They were in for a surprise. The prey was learning to hunt. Admiral Krovex of the Crethon Third Fleet was confident. His force of 120 warships approached the Talax system in perfect formation. Intelligence reported only 30 coalition ships defending the system. It would be another easy victory. Coalition ships detected, his sensor officer reported. Exact count matches our intelligence. 32 vessels in standard defensive formation around the planet. Krovex allowed himself a small smile. The coalition never changed. They always positioned themselves to protect civilian populations. They always used the same tactics. They were so predictable. All ships advance. Standard attack pattern. We'll crush them quickly. The Crethon fleet accelerated. They moved in 3 waves, each designed to overwhelm different sections of the coalition defense. It was textbook. It always worked. The coalition ships opened fire at maximum range. Their blue energy beams looked pretty but did little damage to Crethon shields. As expected, return fire. Concentrate on their flagship. Red energy lanced across space. Coalition shields flickered under the assault. One coalition cruiser exploded, then another. Sir, the coalition fleet is falling back, his tactical officer called out excitedly. They're retreating behind the planet. Krovex's smile widened. They always ran when things got difficult. Pursue them. Don't let them escape. I want every coalition ship destroyed today. The Crethon fleet chased the coalition ships around the planet. The coalition was still firing, but weakly. They were clearly panicking. The entire Crethon force committed to the pursuit. That was when everything went wrong. New contacts. Multiple coalition ships emerging from behind the gas giant's moons. Krovex jerked upright. How many? 40 ships on the left flank. Another 40 on the right. They're moving to encircle us. The admiral stared at the tactical display. The coalition ships they had been chasing suddenly turned around. They weren't retreating. They were leading him into a trap. This isn't possible. The coalition doesn't use deception. But it was happening. Coalition ships poured fire into his fleet from 3 directions. The Crethon formation, designed for pursuing a fleeing enemy, was terrible for defending against attacks from multiple angles. All ships, defensive formation, regroup. But before his fleet could reorganize, new alarms screamed. Sir, our staging area is under attack. It's that human ship. The Indomitable had appeared at the Crethon rear position. The staging area where supply ships, repair vessels, and reserve forces waited. It was supposed to be safe. It was far from the battle. Captain Chen's ship tore through the support vessels like they were made of paper. Supply ships exploded. Fuel tankers detonated in massive fireballs. The few escort ships present were destroyed before they could even raise shields. Krovex felt something he had not experienced in years. Fear. Send half our reserve to deal with the human ship. The rest of you break through the coalition line. But his orders came too late. The coalition was fighting differently. They weren't being defensive. They weren't trying to minimize casualties. They were being aggressive. Coalition ships targeted Crethon command vessels. They focused fire on one enemy ship at a time, destroying it quickly before moving to the next target. They used coordinated attacks from multiple angles. This wasn't the coalition he knew. This was something else. On the Harmonious Dawn, Commander Zixthal watched the battle unfold exactly as planned. The false retreat had worked. The Crethon had taken the bait. Now they were surrounded. All ships focus fire on enemy command vessels. Target their flagships first. Break their coordination. Blue energy beams concentrated on a Crethon battleship. Its shields collapsed. The hull cracked. Internal explosions tore it apart. Target destroyed. Moving to next priority target. Zixthal felt a strange sensation. He had spent his entire career trying to minimize death in war. Now he was ordering the systematic destruction of enemy ships. It felt wrong. But watching the Crethon panic and struggle felt right. These were the ones who burned coalition worlds, who killed billions of civilians, who showed no mercy. They deserved none. Captain Chen reports the staging area is neutralized, his communications officer announced. She's returning to engage the main fleet. Good, tell her to hit them from behind. We'll squeeze them between us. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it ended, 78 Crethon ships were destroyed. 23 more were crippled and captured. Only 19 escaped. The coalition lost 14 ships. 14, compared to the usual 50 or 60 in a major battle. It was a complete victory. The first complete victory the coalition had achieved since the war began. Zixthal stood on his bridge in silence. His crew was celebrating. Across the coalition, word of the victory spread like fire. Finally, they had won. But Zixthal did not feel like celebrating. He looked at the debris field. Thousands of Crethon crew members had died today. He had ordered their deaths, efficiently, systematically, without hesitation. He had become good at killing. Commander, Captain Chen is requesting to come aboard, someone said. Send her in. When Chen arrived on the bridge, she was smiling. Well done, Commander. That was textbook. You used their aggression against them. You chose the battlefield. You controlled the engagement. Perfect execution. We killed thousands today, Zixthal said quietly. Chen's smile faded. She studied him for a moment. Yes, and you saved millions. The Crethon were planning to attack 5 more systems after this. Your victory here stopped that. How many coalition civilians would have died if you hadn't won today? Zixthal did not answer. I know this is hard, Chen continued. Taking lives is never easy. But the Crethon started this war. They chose violence. You're just finishing what they began. We used deception, ambush. We targeted their command structure specifically. These are not honorable tactics, no, Chen agreed. They're effective tactics. There's a difference. Honor doesn't mean fighting stupidly. It means fighting for the right reasons. You're protecting your people. That's honorable. She gestured at the tactical display showing the victory. News of this battle is already spreading. Other coalition fleets are implementing the tactics you used here. The Crethon are confused, scared. They're facing an enemy they don't understand anymore. We are becoming like you, Zixthal said. Warriors, killers. You're becoming survivors, Chen corrected. There's a difference. Warriors seek war. Survivors do what's necessary to protect what they love. You're still the same people. You're just not letting others take advantage of your principles anymore. Zixthal looked at the stars. I hope you're right, Captain. I hope we can return to what we were after this is over. Maybe you can't, Chen said honestly. Maybe you'll be changed forever. But that's not necessarily bad. Growth means change. You're learning that peace needs to be defended. That's not corruption. That's wisdom. She prepared to leave. Get some rest, Commander. There will be more battles. The Crethon won't give up easily. But now you know you can win. That changes everything. After Chen left, Zixthal received reports from across coalition space. Other fleets were winning battles. Using human tactics, fighting smart instead of fair. The tide was turning. In the Crethon Empire capital, Emperor Vax then received the news of the defeat at Talax. His advisors stood silent. They were afraid. The coalition was no longer predictable. No longer passive. What happened? The Emperor demanded. How did they learn to fight like this? Intelligence reports mention a human ship, my lord, an advisor said carefully. The species called humans apparently taught the coalition new tactics. Humans, Vax then repeated. I thought they were myths. They are real, my lord, and they have changed this war. The Emperor stared at the tactical display showing Crethon losses mounting across multiple sectors. For the first time since the war began, he felt uncertain. The prey had learned to hunt, and the hunter was becoming the hunted. 3 months after the Battle of Talax, the war had completely transformed. The Krathon Empire, which had dominated for 2 years, was now fighting for survival. Coalition fleets no longer waited to be attacked. They hunted. They ambushed. They struck at Krathon supply lines and communication nodes. Every tactic the humans taught them was being used with deadly efficiency. Commander Zixthal stood in the Coalition war room, surrounded by holographic displays showing battles across a dozen systems. Every display showed the same story: Coalition victories. The Krathon 4th Fleet attempted to resupply at Station Gamma 7, a Thexian admiral reported. We intercepted them with a coordinated strike from 3 directions. They lost 19 ships before retreating. Excellent, Zixthal said. What about the mining operation in the Hector system? Destroyed, another officer replied. The Krathon were using that system to extract fuel for their fleet. Without it, their operational range is severely limited. Zixthal nodded. Target the logistics. Cut the supply lines. Make them unable to fight even if they wanted to. It was all human doctrine, and it was working. Sir, we're receiving reports from multiple sectors, his communications officer called out. Krathon forces are pulling back from forward positions. They're consolidating around their core systems. The room fell silent. The Krathon were retreating. Actually retreating. A species that had never backed down from any fight was now running. They're afraid, someone whispered. Zixthal looked at the strategic map. Red markers showing Krathon positions were shrinking. Blue markers showing coalition control were expanding. 3 months ago, the map was almost entirely red. Now it was becoming blue. Prepare for a major offensive, he ordered. We're going to push into Krathon space. Target their industrial hub at Varthex Prime. If we destroy their shipyards and factories, they won't be able to rebuild their fleet. Commander, a senior officer said carefully, that would be an invasion of their territory. We've always fought defensively. Are we really going to attack their home systems? Zixthal turned to face him. They invaded us. They burned our worlds, killed billions of our people. Now we finish this war before they have a chance to rebuild and try again. The officer nodded slowly. The old coalition would never have considered such aggressive action. But the old coalition was losing. The new coalition, the one taught by humans, was winning. Over the next 2 weeks, coalition forces gathered for the largest offensive operation in their history. 200 warships from all 14 species assembled at the edge of Krathon space. The Indomitable joined them. Captain Chen's ship had become legendary. Krathon crews called it the Reaper. Some enemy fleets surrendered just from hearing it was in the sector. Captain Chen, Zixthal said during the pre-battle briefing, we want you to lead the vanguard. Your ship has proven most effective at breaking enemy morale. Chen smiled. It would be my honor, Commander. The Indomitable is ready. The assault on Varthex Prime began at dawn local time. The coalition fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system and accelerated toward the planet. Krathon defenses were formidable. Orbital platforms, defense stations, over 80 warships. They had prepared for this attack, but preparation only helped if you knew what was coming. The Indomitable went in first, alone. It charged straight at the heaviest concentrations of Krathon forces. The enemy focused all their fire on the human ship. Hundreds of weapons lit up space with deadly energy. The human ship twisted and dodged. Some shots hit, but Captain Chen kept pushing forward. Her ship launched missiles, fired railguns, drew all the enemy attention. While the Krathon focused on the Indomitable, the coalition fleet split into 3 groups. One group swung around the planet's northern pole. Another went south. The third waited in reserve. It was the Talax strategy again, but on a much larger scale. Draw the enemy's attention to one point, then hit them from unexpected directions. When the coalition flanking groups appeared, the Krathon defense collapsed. They were caught between 3 forces. Their careful formations broke apart. Ships tried to defend against multiple threats at once. The battle was fierce. The Krathon fought with the desperation of a species facing defeat, but desperation was not enough against superior tactics. Coalition forces systematically destroyed orbital platforms. They targeted defense stations. They hit the shipyards with precision strikes. The industrial facilities that built the Krathon war machine burned. On his flagship, Zixthal watched the destruction with mixed emotions. They were winning, decisively. The Crethon ability to wage war was being dismantled piece by piece, but the cost weighed on him. Crethon ships exploding, thousands dying. This was necessary, he told himself, but necessary did not mean easy. Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the Crethon flagship, his communications officer announced. It's Emperor Vax then himself. Zixthal straightened. Put him through. The Emperor's face appeared on the screen. He looked older than in previous images, tired, defeated. Commander Zixthal, the Emperor said. I wish to discuss terms. Terms? Zixthal repeated. Surrender, peace, whatever you wish to call it. The Crethon Empire requests an end to hostilities. The war room went silent. The Crethon were surrendering. The species that believed only the strong deserved to survive was admitting weakness. You burned our worlds, Zixthal said quietly. Killed billions of our people. And now you ask for mercy? We were wrong, the Emperor said. The words seemed to pain him. We underestimated the coalition. We thought your principles made you weak. We were mistaken. You thought we were weak because we valued life, Zixthal said. You were half right. We did value life. But you taught us that sometimes protecting life requires taking it. He looked at the tactical display. His forces could continue the attack. They could destroy the remaining Crethon fleet. They could bombard the planet below. They could do to the Crethon what the Crethon did to them. They could. But should they? All coalition forces cease fire, Zixthal ordered. Hold positions. He turned back to the Emperor. We will accept your surrender under the following conditions. Complete demilitarization of the Crethon Empire. Reparations for the worlds you destroyed. War crime trials for those responsible for civilian massacres. And permanent coalition observers to ensure compliance. The Emperor closed his eyes, then nodded, agreed. We will comply with all terms. When the transmission ended, Zixthal sat down heavily. It was over. After 2 years of war, countless deaths, and complete transformation of coalition military doctrine, the war was finally over. Captain Chen's face appeared on another screen. Well done, Commander. You won. We all won, Zixthal replied. Thanks to you. I just showed you how to fight. You did the actual fighting, and more importantly, you knew when to stop fighting. That's the hardest part. Across coalition space, celebrations erupted. Species that had been on the brink of extinction were now victorious. The Crethon threat was eliminated. Peace was restored, but not everyone was celebrating. Some coalition leaders worried about what they had become. Some questioned whether the changes were permanent. Some wondered if learning human warfare had saved them or corrupted them. Zixthal shared those concerns. The coalition would never be the same. They had learned that peace required strength, that survival sometimes required violence, that principles alone were not enough. They had learned to think like humans, to fight like humans, to win like humans. The question was, what would they do with that knowledge now? In the Crethon Empire, citizens watched their military surrender. The strong had been defeated. Their philosophy of strength at any cost had failed. They had learned a hard lesson. There is always someone stronger. And the truly strong are those who choose when to use their strength. The coalition had been prey. Then they learned to hunt. But unlike the Crethon, they learned when to stop hunting. That made all the difference. 6 months after the war ended, Commander Zixthal stood at an observation deck on Coalition Prime, the central world of the Alliance. The view showed the home planet of the Velari people, green and blue and beautiful, alive. The Crethon had planned to invade this system next. If not for the human intervention, this planet would be burning now. Billions would be dead. Instead, reconstruction was underway. Damaged worlds were being rebuilt. Refugees were returning home. The coalition survived, but it was different now. Beautiful view, a familiar voice said. Zixthal turned. Captain Chen stood behind him. She wore a dress uniform instead of her usual combat gear. The coalition had invited her to a ceremony honoring her role in their victory. Captain, I'm glad you could attend. Though I understand the Indomitable is preparing to depart soon. Chen nodded. Our mission was exploration. We got sidetracked helping with your war. Earth is wondering where we are. Time to go home. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the planet below. I've been thinking, Zixthal said quietly, about what we became, what you turned us into, and I'm not sure if it was salvation or damnation. Maybe both. Chen leaned against the railing. Tell me what bothers you most. Zixthal gestured toward the memorial gardens visible below. Monuments to the war dead stretched for miles. We won, but we lost something in the process. Our innocence. Our idealism. We learned to deceive, to kill efficiently, to wage war the way humans do. And that troubles you? Yes. The coalition was built on the principle that all life is valuable. That war should be avoided. That honor matters more than victory. Now our military academies teach deception tactics and psychological warfare. Chen was quiet for a moment. Commander, can I tell you about Earth? Of course. For thousands of years humans fought each other. We got very good at killing. We invented weapons that could destroy our entire species. We came within minutes of using them more than once. She looked at the stars beyond the planet. Then something changed. Not because we evolved past violence. Not because we suddenly became better people. We changed because we finally understood the true cost of war. We mastered violence so completely that it terrified us. So you stopped fighting? We chose peace, Chen corrected. But we chose it from a position of strength. We didn't become peaceful because we were weak. We became peaceful because we were strong enough to make that choice. She turned to face him. You think you lost your innocence? Maybe you did. But innocence and ignorance are close relatives. The old coalition believed war could be fought honorably. That principle alone would protect you. The Krethon taught you otherwise. So we had to become like them? No, you had to become smarter. The Krethon fight because they enjoy dominating others. You fought because you were defending your homes. That difference matters. Chen pointed to the memorial gardens. Every one of those monuments represents someone who died. But look beyond them. Look at the cities. The people walking the streets. The children playing in parks. They're alive because you were willing to do what was necessary. Necessary, Zixthal repeated. That's become my least favorite word. It's not supposed to be a comfortable word. War never is. But here's what I want you to understand. You didn't become humans. You became yourselves, but wiser. You learned that peace requires strength. That protecting what you love sometimes means fighting. She smiled sadly. Humans aren't warriors by nature. We're survivors who learned hard lessons. Now you've learned them too. What you do with that knowledge defines who you are. And what should we do? The same thing humans did. Choose peace, but maintain the ability to defend that peace. Be strong enough that nobody dares attack you. Wise enough to know when not to use that strength. A chime sounded. The ceremony was about to begin. They walked together toward the main hall where coalition leaders from all 14 species waited. The ceremony was brief but moving. The Coalition Council presented Captain Chen with their highest honor. They declared the Indomitable and its crew honorary members of the Coalition. They offered permanent ambassadorial status to humanity. Chen accepted gracefully. She promised that Earth would maintain contact with the Coalition, that humans and the 14 species would be friends. After the ceremony, Zixthal walked Chen to her shuttle. Other Coalition officers came to say goodbye. Many had tears in their eyes. This human had saved them all. Captain, Zixthal said as she prepared to board. One last question. Ask away. How do we ensure we don't become what we fought against? The Krethon started as defenders of their empire. They became conquerors. What stops us from following the same path? Chen thought carefully before answering. You remember why you fought. The Krethon fought for glory and dominance. You fought for survival and protection. Never forget that distinction. She looked at the coalition officers around them. Also, you question yourselves. The fact that you worry about becoming monsters means you probably won't. It's when you stop questioning that you should worry. Thank you, Captain. For everything. Thank you for listening. Not everyone would have. Some species would have rather died than change. You were brave enough to adapt. The shuttle lifted off. Zixthal watched it rise into the sky, heading toward the Indomitable waiting in orbit. Soon the human ship would leave this sector, return to Earth, resume its exploration mission, but the changes it brought would remain forever. In the weeks that followed, the Coalition reorganized its military structure. They kept the aggressive tactics and strategic thinking humans taught them. But they also established strict rules of engagement, protections for civilians, war crime tribunals, ways to ensure they used their new knowledge responsibly. The military academies taught both human warfare and coalition ethics, how to fight effectively while maintaining moral principles, how to be strong without being cruel. It was a difficult balance. Some got it wrong. Some officers became too aggressive. Others remained too passive. But gradually a new doctrine emerged. One that combined coalition values with human pragmatism. The Chthon Empire slowly transformed under coalition oversight. Their militarism faded. Their aggressive culture softened. They learned that strength alone was not enough. That true power came from cooperation, not domination. Some Chthon embraced the change. Others resented it. But all learned the lesson. There is always someone stronger. And the truly wise know when to fight and when to seek peace. Years later, Zixthal retired from military service. He became a teacher at the Coalition Military Academy. His students learned both the old ways and the new. The idealism and the pragmatism. The honor and the effectiveness. On his first day teaching, a young cadet asked him a question. "Sir, is it true you fought alongside a human? That they taught us how to win the war?" Zixthal smiled. "Yes, Captain Sarah Chen and the crew of the Indomitable. They arrived when we were losing. They showed us how to fight. How to think. How to survive. Did we become like them? Like humans?" "No," Zixthal said firmly. "We became ourselves. But we learned from them. We learned that peace is not weakness. That defending what you love requires strength. That principles are worth fighting for but not dying for stupidly." He looked at his class. Young faces from all 14 species. The future of the coalition. Humans taught us something important. War is not about honor or glory. It's about survival. But survival gives you the chance to choose what comes next. We survived. We chose peace, and we maintained the strength to defend that choice. "Is Captain Chen still alive?" another student asked. "Will we ever meet humans again?" "I hope so," Zixthal said. "Humanity and the coalition are friends now. Perhaps one day we'll meet as equals. Two civilizations that chose peace from positions of strength." He walked to the window. Outside, coalition ships patrolled the system. Strong, capable, ready, but not eager for war. That was the key difference. They could fight. They would fight if necessary. But they preferred peace. That was what humans taught them. Not how to be warriors, but how to be strong enough to choose peace. Somewhere in the galaxy, the Indomitable continued its mission, exploring, discovering, and occasionally, when they found species in trouble, helping. Captain Chen would sometimes think about the coalition, about how one encounter changed the fate of 15 species, about how sharing knowledge saved billions of lives. She hoped the coalition remembered the right lessons, not just how to fight, but why to fight, and more importantly, when not to. In the end, that was humanity's greatest gift to the coalition. Not weapons or tactics or strategies, but wisdom, the understanding that true strength means having the power to destroy your enemies and choosing mercy instead. The coalition survived. They changed, they grew, and they never forgot the day a human warship appeared and turned the war forever. Not because the humans fought for them, but because the humans taught them to fight for themselves, and that made all the difference.